Okay, let's try this on for size. Hey, I'm TBSkyen. If you know who I am, good job to your algorithm finding me on this channel. And if you don't know who I am, don't worry about it. It does not matter. But if I'm gonna do reaction content, then I suppose I should react to the thing that's like, you know, the thing that's like most associated with me. At least for now. And yeah, so I've been meaning to do this earlier because it's been sitting in my watch later list on YouTube since it premiered, basically. Like I was planning to watch it on the premiere because it's fun to see people reacting to the thing in the live chat and shit like that. And then I just didn't, and then I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it later. And then, oh no, wait, I've been playing Rogue Trader for 6 hours again, and then it's like, no, we're gonna finish this up, and then I'm gonna go, oh no, I'm watching an episode of that. Like a bunch of other things just kept getting in the way. Emails, work, like it's one of those ADHD executive dysfunction brain things where I just can't get myself to do the most obvious thing that I want to do, but I can do a million other things. Very annoying. But now I'm here. I've managed to get the thing up on screen. I'm recording a reaction. So yeah, the way that it works for me, reaction content, is that I don't just I'm going to play the thing, and then anytime there's something I want to talk about, I'm going to pause, and then I'm going to talk about it for a while. So if you want to use this video as a way to watch the season cinematic, don't go watch it yourself. Then if you want to have my reaction thing, come back. Because otherwise you're going to get a very stilted... This video is 4 minutes and 20 seconds. We could be here for an hour. Depends on what happens in it. I don't know. So I guess we'll find out. But I'll stop blabbering now. Let's just press play, and I should probably make sure that you guys can hear it as well for this one.
Tomorrow is a hope, never a promise.
That's the kindred, right? Yeah. And Trindamir on ground, almost dead. Wow, I bet he's definitely gonna die. Man, the guy has such a nothing character design, honestly. Aurelia? No. Morgana? Kale? Oh, this is back when they were... Oh, this is back when they were both playing at the Aspect of Justice. Oh, hello. And they're fighting Aatrox, of all people. Okay. I guess they canonically had a fight with Aatrox at some point. Interesting. Okay. So, character design note, this is something I've talked about multiple times with Kale before, is the helmet and the military armor and the shit that she's wearing. That's all, theoretically at least, and this is my complaint about Kale, is that that's a great way to depersonalize a character, right? And Kale is someone who doesn't want to be human. She does not want to be human. She wants to be the perfect, like, unimpeachable, immaculate embodiment of justice. She wants to be inhuman. And so one of the clever things that her original design did was encase her entirely in armor. Like, they didn't do it for that reason, but that's one of the things that, oh shit, that works really well, that Kale is, she wants to be this inhuman, like, impossible ideal of justice, and so she encases, like, she locks away her fleshy, relatable, sort of soft humanity in a shell of metal, and like, so, like, that's good character design. That's very effective character design. And then Morgana is the one who wants to embrace her human side. She rejects justice. She rejects the aspect. She wants to be a human being, first and foremost, and so she doesn't wear armor and shit. And that's good character design right up until they had the mechanic with Kale where the more she levels up, the more powerful she becomes, the less armor she... It's like she takes her helmet off and her armor and shit. And it's like, that's so... For me, that's so fucking pants on head backwards. Because it's when Kale ascends more and more into her form as, like, the aspect of justice and becomes less and less human, she should be wearing more and more armor as she becomes more and more powerful and less in touch with her human side, right? That's... But what they're doing here, Morgana is wearing a Demacia helmet, which is an awkward fit for her outfit, I will say, but presumably what they're going to do here is they're going to do a thing with the helmets where, like, the taking off of the helmet is going to have some symbolic dividing thing about, like, this is when Morgana rejects being the aspect of justice, because she takes off the helmet and says, no, I will not be wearing the armor, I will be wearing my human face. And then Kale has a upset about that, or whatever, is my assumption. We'll see how that bears up. But that's a character design note, is when you encase a character in armor, you dehumanize them, and you take them further away from, like, relatable humanity. You deny us access to their, like, human facial features and human features in general, and their softness. And that's, like, a good way to design a character who's, like, steely and flinty and uncompromising. Aatrox, maybe you should hit them with your sword instead of just throwing them around. I guess he has an army, too. Oh yeah, there we go. Helmet's off. Ooh, Kale doesn't really seem to like that. But again, like, this would be so much more effective if Kale still had the helmet on. Like, that established the contrast between them. Okay, Ionia. We've got some Raiders. Noxians, maybe? Or Navarro? Okay. I mean, these people have never heard about Rule 1, which is when like you're confronted by a lone old man who like draws a line in the sand and like encourages you not to step over it. You should not do that. Like if there's like one old guy who seems completely harmless is like, yeah, I'm gonna kick your ass. You should like turn around, walk away. That's rule number 1. You should follow rule number 1. Is that Yasuo?
I'm still here.
They're very carefully avoiding showing any blood, as usual. Okay, so is that implying that that's the one arrow that finally ends Yasuo's life? Oh, I see. That's why the arrow, because Kindred, of course. That's an interesting representation of Wolf as like an actual physical beast. When he's normally presented as like a hunting beast.
I'm still here.
Oh, hey! That's a slightly different design for Ashe. It's nice that they're focusing a little bit on the relationship between the two of them. Okay. Right, so it's the general theme is one of, like, overcoming death, essentially. Oh, hang on. That's the... I wanted to watch the philosophy, too, about anti-Semitism. We're not reacting to that today, though.
Tomorrow is a hope.
So hang on. We've basically got Tryndamere nearly about to get murked by some dudes. And so what's happening symbolically is that as he wakes up in this vision thing, as he's fighting off Wolf and Lamb, presumably that's actually him fighting all those dudes, and like refusing to die to them. And so when Ashe shows up, it's a thing of like, I think he was probably just about to die, like really close to getting actually murked. And then we get that, like, because with the arrows are lighting up the... And so the storytelling there is that...
I'm still here.
Like, first of all, that the Kindred can't get Tryndamere because the man is literally too angry to die, but also that the only thing that sort of pulls Tryndamere back from the brink of his berserker rage, where he becomes nothing but this death-dealing machine that exists in the limbo life between, like, the limbo realm between life and death. Like, the only one who restores him to an actual real life is Ash and his relationship with her. So, let's see. Okay, some interesting changes to Ash's design here. Not anything substantial. Like, it's not meaningfully any different than her Legends of Runeterra incarnation, I think. Yeah, like, they gave her pants. So, you know, that's an improvement. She's got fur lining on her armor because, you know, she lives in a place that's fucking cold. She's got some... Yeah, she seems to have, like, padded leather armor on her chest, like, with the thing. So it's, like, it's reasonably similar to the redesign I did. Because that was a very conservative redesign. It goes with the obvious, sort of, with Apple Cork way back when. But it mostly seems to be based on her Legends of Runeterra incarnation, if I were to be any judge. Because they've also generally covered up her exposed skin, and sort of, like, pulled back on the whole pin-up model thing that she originally was based on towards something that looks a little bit more like it belongs in an Arctic environment. It's still, like... Ash really does need a ground-up redesign in a lot of ways, because it's still... There's still so many opportunities you could use, like, to use the actual, like, fashion of people who live in Arctic environments, like indigenous peoples, like, or, like, even fucking just look at Viking fashion, right? Like, from people who lived in high Arctic northern climates, or Russia, for that matter, that I think would be much more interesting than this very basic-ass Elven Ranger shit, because, like, Ash is a copy of the Drow Ranger from Dota, the original Defense of the Ancients, which is just a palette swap of the Elven Ranger or the Dark Ranger from Warcraft 3. Like, that's literally Ash remains a direct interpolation and copy of that character design, and, like, it needs a ground-up redesign that actually takes into account, like, the story that she's supposed to tell, because it still looks like this is an Elven Ranger. Like, that's still what the character design says to me, but, you know. It also would be nice, like, you see Tryndamere? Boy, pores, skin, sweat, grease. He gets to be, like, sort of haggard and a little bit fucked up. And then Ash is, like, I think it's better here than it usually is, but it's still that thing of, like... Look, like, perfect, unblemished, flawless skin, and she's wearing makeup because of... Why? Because, again, makeup is something you could do some cool shit with makeup. You could do all kinds of face paint. You can do all kinds of, like stuff that's meant to sort of imply something about her role in society, or like this is the matriarch of the Avarosa clan, and maybe they have, like, specific face paints that denote, like, hierarchy in the power structure of the Avarosa, or, like, you could do all kinds of cool thing with makeup, but if you just, like, eyeliner, mascara, I guess, put some foundation on it, it's like, yeah... Like, you're losing out on such an opportunity to do some cool world building in favor of just, she looks like she should be in a makeup ad. Like, she just looks like it's the problem I have with makeup a lot of the time, is that the way that it's done, it's just modern makeup from 2024 is put on characters who are supposed to be a part of a unique culture, which would have its own unique culture of makeup, right? Like, makeup is a huge part of culture. It's a huge part of how you present yourself. And they never use it for anything. They just go, generic, good-looking makeup from 2024, please. That's all we want. And then, like, obviously, the menfolk, though, they get to have, like, he gets to have scars. He gets to have, like, fucked up veins and, like, wrinkles on his face. He gets to look like he's actually lived in a deadly environment for most of his life, fighting hard to survive. And she doesn't. She doesn't get to look like that. She gets to look like she, like... takes baths every day and just kind of hangs out and like does fitness and is a lifestyle blogger, right? And that's the problem, is like there's this storytelling opportunity, which is the cool thing about this update, is that, look, all of this, like, this harsh leather, like, bound with, like, strings and things, like these heavy plating that looks like it's meant to protect her upper body from attacks and stuff, which, like, sort of, okay, that implies something about how she lives her life, that she needs this kind of gear. That's storytelling. And then the actual body of the character, the actual physical form underneath the costume, nothing. Zero. Bupkis. Absolutely bugger all. And it's so annoying because like it is not exclusive to women. They do it with male characters plenty as well. I don't want to stereotype, but it's a lot more with women. Like with women, the character design priority is a lot more, well, she has to be pretty in 2024 terms, right? Like she has to be pretty in current day, because when people look at her, they have to go, oh, she's pretty in a way that if she was here now, we would also say, hey, that's beautiful. Rather than thinking about, hey, maybe they have a different idea of what beauty is in this strange magical culture in a foreign realm in an alternate dimension. Maybe they think differently about what beauty looks like, or what kinds of aesthetics are prioritized in someone. Like maybe that would be cool to explore as a point of character design. But no, it's just, and I know why. It's because if they do that, if they do actually dare to step outside of the beauty paradigm, everyone's gonna go, why did you make her look ugly? You did it on purpose. This is woke bullshit. It's like people are gonna piss their pants and shit in their hands and fling it around, and no one wants to deal with that, but it's just so tedious and tiresome. Anyway, that was probably predictable that I'd have that rant about Ash here. Let's check in with Kael and Morgana. Do they not have this thing in 4K? They do, thank God. Because YouTube compression and dark scenes is an uniconic duo. Let's see. Okay. Because, like, the helmet on Morgana here is bad. It's not. Ooh, like, it works on Kael because she's actually wearing armor that implies that she should wear a helmet like that. And then Morgana, it's like, she's got gauntlets and, like, half of a metal corset, I guess, that doesn't actually cover her vital organs on the front, which, why is that? It just looks a little, and that maybe that's kind of part of it, that the helmet is a bad fit on Morgana, right? Like the helmet doesn't suit her because she doesn't want to be the aspect of justice. But then why not have Kael keep the helmet on? Like because there's this great moment where Morgana says, okay, fuck the sword, fuck fighting this way, I'm going to use sorcery, I'm going to use magic, right? I'm going to unleash my full power. And Kael seems to not be super jazzed about her doing that because it's dark magic or whatever. Where you could storytell the split between the sisters, that Morgana rejects the helmet. Like, even better, you could have a thing where, like, actually, do they do that? I should check if they do that. No, okay. Like, even better, I would have, like, when Morgana is, like, reaching into her power and she's about to do this thing, I would have her magic, like, literally burst the armor off of her body, like shatter the armor away from her to sort of show that she's falling fully into, like, she's reaching into her humanity for this power, where Kael is reaching for the divine. And then you could, like, if Kael then also kept the damn helmet on, or more, even better, perhaps, like, Kael gets knocked back, she's on the ground thing, and her helmet gets knocked off, and then Morgana takes the helmet off, but Kael puts it back on. Again, storytelling the split between the sisters, right? Like, that Kael makes a specific decision to put the helmet back on. But, yeah, again, right, if there, like, when Kael is walking towards and, like, picking the sword up, if we had a thing of, like, her putting the helmet back on defiantly, I think, like, that would have done much more of the storytelling between these two sisters, like, that they are splitting from one another, like, that they're different from one another. But once again, just like, hey, we need this woman to look conventionally attractive in 2024 terms, because that's what it's important about Kael. That's one thing. Like, Kael, you could make the argument with Kael that, like, a completely immaculate exterior, including her face, right? Like, she has a perfect appearance with perfectly smooth skin, like, completely angelic. You can make the case for her that she would need that as part of her storytelling, because, like, that's again this thing of, like, I cannot have any visible physical flaws, right, on my outside form. I must be perfect in every aspect. But then again is where I would go, the storytelling with Morgana then would be that she's someone who doesn't look that way, right? Like, that she's someone who looks flawed, looks human, looks a little bit haggard, maybe, like, has wrinkles and smile lines and, like, the signs of a human life that has been lived, whereas Kael looks like this immaculate, completely perfect, like, angel thing. And they do that a little bit there. Like, that's one of the things I've always kind of liked about, like, the runny mascara thing that Morgana has going on, is that is a, like, that's an imperfection, right? Like, that's something that's not perfect, that's kind of staining her, that's kind of like doing all of that. Again, I feel like there was more of an opportunity to lean into it a little bit harder. Maybe not in this short, though. Like, maybe not in this short, but just in general in their character design. That if Kale is this perfectly maintained, like, absolutely immaculate, like, vision of conventional beauty, that Morgana is the opposite of that she's someone who doesn't worry about beauty ideals, that doesn't, like, maybe she's a little pudgy, maybe she has wrinkles or pimples, like, whatever, maybe she doesn't do a, like, 14-step skincare routine every morning, like, just something to, like, story tell the difference between them. But no, it's that I don't think that's necessarily on the short. The short is more, I think they could have used the armor better to establish the differences between these two characters. Yeah. And I'm gonna be on that thing with the helmet forever, aren't I? Yeah, I am. Okay. Anything to talk about here? Not really. But with Yasuo, though, let's have a look, because Yasuo, again, so the crow's mask thing, I don't know if that's, because that's definitely an Asakana mask, right? Then this, but this doesn't. That's a spirit mask. That's a Oh, I know what it is. Fuck! How the fuck did I not see it? It's the wind and the wave. Those are Legends of Runeterra. There are aspects of Kindred. Like, Kindred as Death has a lot of different aspects on Runeterra, and they all wear masks, and some of the masks look like that. Like, some of the aspects of Kindred have masks that look like that. So that's Death, again, coming to confront Yasuo. Makes sense. Okay, cool. That good detail. Very good detail. Look at that. Again, all of this stuff I'm talking about, how they, like, the women are not allowed to show a life lived in their character design. Look what you can get when you do that, when you do allow a life lived to show on a character, right? You get this sense, because part of the point of this scene right here is that Yasuo isn't the immaculate warrior that he once was, right? Like, he's not, like, the untouchable sword god who once, like, took down his own brother and, like, who's been traveling all over Runeterra anymore. He's an old man. He's vulnerable. He's a little bit weak. That's why we have this thing of, like, he's taking down those two thugs or whatever, and then one of them gets a kick in on his face and his staff breaks, right? Like, he wins, but it's not a clean victory. He's vulnerable. He's actually vulnerable to keep getting taken down by random dudes because he's old. And that, imagine if he hadn't looked haggard. Imagine if he hadn't had all the wrinkles and all the lines on him, and, like, hadn't looked a little bit raggedy with his beard and shit like that. The character design is doing part of the storytelling, that he's old and vulnerable now. Having said that, I do feel, and that's more a general thing about the aesthetic of this particular short, it looks very Diablo. Right, like the general aesthetics of this short, the way that they handle, like, lighting and color and all of that, that's very Diablo to me. Very sort of Blizzard Entertainment, Diablo 4 trailer kind of vibe, like that, where they're dipping a little bit into the sort of slightly too realistic, little bit fantasy grimdark thing. That it works with the theme of the thing, is that death is coming for all these people. Does clash a little bit with League of Legends general aesthetics, I think, especially here in Ionia. There's a little bit of a yeah, I'm not 100% feeling it. It's not really a criticism. Like, it's not a thing of, oh, the short is bad. It's just, that's an aesthetic choice that if I was the director on something like this, I would probably have gone for something a little bit more stylized, especially to highlight, like, those character design choices about how the characters are presented. But yeah, whatever. Doesn't matter.
I'm still here.
So, arrows, right? Like, that's the other thing in this thing, is arrows are this constant signifier of death coming for you, and then death defied. That's the other thing. Good little visual storytelling thing, like the wind power beginning to rise in Yasuo and like blasting the bandages off of him. That's a very good signifier of like power unleashed, right? Like of someone tapping into what is inside of them. And it's like, again, that's kind of what I said about Morgana with the armor. If her power had been like, if she had tapped into her magic powers and had blasted the armor off of her, right? It had shattered her armor and like fully released her from that shell of metal. That would have been cool, in the same way that it's really cool here when Yasuo is like, okay, I'm going to tap into my actual fucking power, and I'm going to kick these guys' asses, and you can see that the wind power is like literally pushing the bandages off him. That's a really cool moment. Morgana should have had that as well. It is still, I know why, like, it's censorship things, the stupid censorship things about blood and stuff like that, where like, I think especially China has a different approach to censorship where they are much more specific about censoring blood and gore, and so for most cinematics, League of Legends just doesn't delve into those things. But it is still a little bit silly that he's running at them, he's slashing them with a blade, and then you just kind of fall down with no visible wounds on them. And this is where he makes a decision, by the way, between protecting himself from the arrows and taking the guy down, and prioritizes the guy. And we get the excellent shot, like a very, very good shot, where you see, like, fully unleashed, and then there. You see that? You see how that kind of forms the outline of a wolf? Right? Like, little bit, you can just barely see Wolf's face staring down at him here. As Yasuo accepts the fate that's coming to him. Which is interesting, like, is this, a lot of people are probably, is this how Yasuo canonically dies? And it's like, that would be cool, but no, it's not. I promise you, I 100%, 110% guarantee you that if you ask any rioter about, is this how Yasuo? Well, no, we just imagine that maybe, possibly, this is possibly how maybe his story could end, theoretically. Because Riot is never, ever, ever going to commit to something like that, ever. No, like, no shot, no way, no how they're ever going to commit to saying, this is definitely how they, because they don't commit to anything. Which is one of the company's big problems, is that they are physically incapable of really committing to anything, because committing to something means that they might have to, like, they're shutting themselves away from other options in the future, and they have so much anxiety about fucking doing that. They're terrified of it. Anyway, cool little visual thing here. These are trees, right? Like, we're laying on the ground, we're looking up into the sky, we're seeing tree branches, but they also look like blood veins. They look like veins of blood, in a person's body, but they also look like, you know, in Call of Duty when you get shot a lot and you get like the red fringes around, it means you have to get into cover so that you can not have bullet wounds anymore. It also looks like that. So it has this low health indicator thing about it that I quite appreciated.
It's in my blood, it's in my veins.
Hello, Wolf. I want to get a better look at Wolf. I would also like to hear that song without all the sound effects, honestly. There's some really good effects work going on with Wolf, too, I think. Like, the way that he sort of fades in and out of existence is very good. I like the animation choice on Kindred, just have it just slowly pacing, just slowly circling him. Completely calm, completely reasonable, and then Wolf is the one who's, like, giving him an actual fight. Yeah, basically he seems to look like a Tibetan Mastiff, more or less. Like, with this big... And that's an interesting decision, like, they made him a physical, like, actually running on the ground wolf instead of the floating spirit that he usually is. And that's one of those things, like, I think Wolf looks like that in League of Legends. Just because it's easier. Like, it's easier to have a floating spirit that kind of orbits Kindred, rather than a physical character who's actually walking on the ground, just in terms of how you, like, deal with collision and animation. And, like, I think if Wolf was a physical spirit walking on the ground in League of Legends, people would expect him to be part of the Kindred's hurt box. Or hitbox, rather. Like, they would expect to be able to hit Wolf as well as Kindred, as well as Lamb. And I don't think you can, so it's probably for the best that he's floating. But I do feel like he gets something. Like, I feel like he gets something out of being a physical presence in that way. Like, big and weighty and heavy and, like, and like dangerous like a freight train. Another good little... okay, fuck it. We're doing an animation breakdown. Fine. I've come to my decision. I need to do an animation breakdown. There's a lot of good little characterization things happening here that I should mention. Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, that's the end of my reaction then, because now I'm into talking about the actual animation itself, and that should probably be in an animation breakdown video. So I'm going to go take some notes. I'm going to do an animation breakdown maybe later today. Depends on how amped I am. I'm a little amped. I'm a bit. But this was the reaction, at least. So enjoy that if you have found it. Toodles.